I want to thank my sub Beef for directing me to this hypocritical gaslighting YouTuber called Yogopnik. He admits that he has bribed a woman in his life by taking on the standard traditionalist male gender role. And then he's going to gaslight men into the idea that there's these countless other alternatives to that. He's also going to talk about the masculinity crisis, and we can't blame women for anything, right? So let's get into him admitting that he is a traditionalist.
And guards, it does with the masculine. I myself, for example, am extremely happy in what could easily be defined as a traditionalist's ideal. I have a long-term partner who takes care of the home a lot more than me. I hope to one day be married, raise kids, and provide.
Really? You want to provide? Why do you, an evolved man, wish to be the old stereotypical provision roles? Also, it's not easily defined as traditional. It is traditional. This is the traditional role. And your partner takes care of the home a lot more than me. In other words, she stays at home more than you. You go out and work. So you bribe this woman into your life. She isn't with you because she loves you for you. She's with you because you bribed her with labor. Very typical. And he's extremely happy with this. He's extremely happy with this no respect situation. Right. Okay, now let's get into the gaslighting.
But I do not sit here and bash or dissuade anyone from pursuing the countless different alternatives to such a life path.
Well, you can't because they don't exist. Not only is there not countless alternatives, there's zero alternatives. Because if there was, you would have gone for them. You would have gone for an alternative where the woman hangs with you because she wants to be with you, not the traditional one where you pay her to be with you. You know, would you pay guys to be your friends? No, you would see that as having no self-respect. So men show that they have no self-respect when it comes to women.
You want to raise kids in 50-member communal families or something, as long as it ain't culty, you do your thing, Tavarish. And to an extent, you doing your thing is exactly the point. Masculinity, just like femininity or the rejection of both, are concepts tied to our culture.
No one rejects those. You didn't reject it. You satisfied a very typical male gender role.
Heritage, mind, and biology. Sure, great. But that doesn't mean we have to remain stuck to definitions which have proven themselves to not only be toxic for those around us, but toxic to ourselves.
Really? So you entered a relationship, a typical one, which is toxic to yourself and those around you. And you're extremely happy that you did. Because what you've done is the complete definition of a traditionalist man-woman partnership, where the man works and the woman lives off him. Right.
The loneliness, the rejection, the struggle to find our identity is a difficult path to thread, especially in a time as confusing as ours.
There's nothing confusing about our times. It's only confusing if you're not willing to admit the reality of gender dynamics. It's all very simple. Men want to be with women, and women don't care to be with men. So men have to bribe women, like you did, into their relationships. It's very, very simple. It's only convoluted if you're going to make up stories about why things are the way they are.
Only an idiot would deny that. The modern masculinity crisis, as it's called, has reached a point where it can no longer excuse its ideological flaws by offloading it on the woman.
There you go. You can't blame women for what women demand. Your woman demanded your gender role and you gave it to her, but she can't be blamed for that, right?
So it must
Oh,
look
by the way, even this guy's avatar tells you everything you need to know. Your avatar, buddy, is in a suit with bling. So you're telling everyone with your avatar that you're about wealth. And that's what you would do to attract women. And also, when I searched for him in the comment section, where did I find him? He ignored everyone, but he's talking to this gaslighting woman. This is the one he wishes to speak to. And she's gaslighting men about being vulnerable, which we all know by now turns women off. I would ban a person like this who showed up in my comment section, right? Anyway, that tells you everything you need to know about this guy. He's a complete female worshiping loser.
Self in the mirror and adapt, grow, learn, as it has.
Do you mean adapt and grow like you by taking on the traditional role?
Throughout centuries, we no longer decapitate each other to prove who the bigger man is.
Well, men still go to war, don't they? There's wars going on as we speak. And wars are all about men killing other men, stealing their stuff, and bringing it back to bribe their women. That's what they do. So I would have to say you're wrong about that.
We have shown we can change the mainstream definition as the world around us evolves. And an ideal of masculinity as such, to me at least, is a place in the future of our species. One which looks inwards as much as out. One that doesn't fear change or growth through change. One that accepts its lack and addresses the systematic ills which put us at odds with our sisters, mothers, partners, friends, wives.
Nonsense, pal. The ladies in our lives, they're the ones who reject us, not the other way around. Men go through hoops upon hoops to get with women. They're the ones who do the rejecting. So there's no point blaming men for what women do. Okay? Now, we'll get in and debunk this nonsense. We'll start around here. The cause. All right.
It's not the symptoms of why, in the first place, is there a crisis of so-called masculinity? How does it relate to femininity, to capitalism and sex? Or said more plainly, why is a certain loud minority of men so obsessed with being up in women's business?
So if a man wants to talk about relationships, he's not allowed to involve women. It's just women's business. Isn't that his business as well? See, right off the bat, this guy doesn't even believe men should have a right to speak for themselves or talk about the issues. No man hating here, right?
What even is masculinity? A biological reality, an identity, a set of rules and values.
The third one. It's a set of rules and values that women have made and foist on us. They're the ones who decide what masculinity is. And that's why, you got Nick, that's why men have to throw away the idea of masculinity. Because we are not the ones who make up the rules. It's all one-sided, right? And by the way, I suspect that if men did that, you would call us misogynist. Matter of fact, when men reject these rules and values that women set on them, these women call men incels, right? So an incel is simply a man who doesn't know his place and doesn't serve women, right?
3,000 years ago in Greece, it meant wifing up through sex. 2,000 years ago, for the Germanic tribesmen, it was the ability to protect his woman. But
I'm going to correct you here. You got Nick. The wars are about killing other men, stealing their stuff, and giving it to their wives to keep them bribed around. Case in point, historically, when the Vikings went on raids, and let's say they raided a British monastery, they weren't protecting their wives from these foreign monks praying in their cells, were they? No, it was about killing them and stealing the wealth of the monastery, right? That's what war actually is. It's resource acquisition by men to bribe women with.
medieval Europeans added chivalry and piety to the mix.
By the way, I'm glad he mentioned chivalry, because that'll be talked about later.
Victorian era, all masculinity was seemingly thrown away as unnecessary, only to be brought back in the West under the ideal of breadwinning.
Exactly. Men tried to get rid of their gender roles on their own, but they had to bring it back. You know why? Because if they weren't bribing women in their lives, the women didn't want to be with them. I mean, you're proof positive. That's why you took on the provider role, why you said you wanted to provide, right? So we can't blame men for this. This is what women want, what women demand of men.
no longer through a sword or against a foe, but through work and studious labor for the wife and the family that the man brought about respect. Notice the pattern? Yeah.
Yes, the pattern is everything you've shown are ways for men to gain wealth to bribe women. That's what it is. You've shown three paths. Now, of course, this path is the one you took. That is the path of working, bribing a woman with your labors. Second path is to steal wealth from other men if you can't build it yourself. The third path is to have wealth at the beginning, to be inherited, or like in this case, this is an upper class Greek. He had wealth, he didn't have to go to war, and he didn't have to work for a living. So those are the three paths: work for wealth, steal wealth, or be born with it. There you go. So that is the pattern. Now we'll get into more.
Proposes that masculinity in itself is a false identity insofar as it only exists in its relation to the fetishized idea of the feminine.
This guy's only half right. It is a false identity. False identity women put on the men. But it has nothing to do with a fetishized idea of feminine. This is a concrete demand from real life women.
When the extent to which masculinity can exert itself is questioned, be it
masculinity, it can't be exerted. Servants don't do the exerting.
Through the first experience men have with not achieving an erection at a moment when they really need one, their inability to provide in a system that doesn't allow them to, or
the erection thing is neither here nor there. Women don't get together with men for their sex. So it doesn't matter if men are able to get it up or not. Ugopnik, there's all kinds of men in sexless marriages. Women are interested in that, right? The marriage still lasts even if it's sexless, because it has nothing to do with sex appeal. Just, can the man bribe her? That's it.
Or just knowing that there will always be a bigger, badder dude than you out there, when the extent to which, whatever your definition of masculinity,
it's not our definition. I just said the definition is made up by women, so don't even bother.
Can exert itself is questioned. The male symbolic lack, as it's called, looks outwards to satisfy itself. And where does it find it?
It's not a symbolic lack. You either have intimacy with a woman or you don't. So it's very concrete. So there's nothing symbolic about this. You've got a woman in your life, right? Because you wanted to fulfill that lack. You don't consider it symbolic, right? And here, this is what's important. The cause of this is very simple. Nature does not recognize evil, Ugopnik. It recognizes an imbalance. And the imbalance is men want to be with women, and women don't really care if they're with men. And so that's why men bribe women, like you did, into their lives. That's what's going on here. It doesn't get any more complex than that. That's where all this derives from. This is the cause.
Satisfy itself. And where does it find it? In the woman. Well, the fetishized, twisted idea of the woman.
Hold on. How is this a twisted idea? So the twisted idea is a woman that's sexually appealing to a man. That's your idea of twisted? You really think men deserve nothing? I don't see anything twisted about, you think there aren't women with rocking bodies and they're not dressed scantily when they want to? If that's twisted, then there's an awful lot of twisted women on TikTok, isn't there?
Of the woman, one which serves many roles but must never abandon her primary one, to fill the symbolic lack.
Hey there, pretty mama, want to fill my symbolic lack?
To be a tool for the masculine to keep itself.
How is you working for a woman making her a tool for the masculine?
Alive. By offering protection or the ability to, quote, take care of the woman, masculinity reinvents itself and erases its inadequacies.
Well, actually, no, it hasn't reinvented itself yet. You're living proof. You are in a traditional, provider relationship.
Looking inwards, or God forbid, critically discarding archaic ideas would be far too difficult. So,
Oh,
in a
you're
similar
living proof of that. I'll say that. Yeah. Okay. Now we'll get beyond this. Let's see, what's our next one here? Okay, just want to jump to this Roe versus Wade thing he mentions.
That's why it hit so hard and yet so mellow when Roe v. Wade was overturned. Streets didn't burn, governments weren't overturned. We were rowdy for a week or two, and that was it.
You know why? I'll just call you Bling Man because your name is just so, Bling Man. You know why that's the case? Because Roe versus Wade, when it was overturned, it was an argument between two groups of women. Society gives women what women want. It panders to them. And enough women said they wanted Roe versus Wade overturned that it gave it to them. And that's why the streets didn't burn and the governments weren't overthrown. That's why. Women wanted this. And you have to be in denial that that's the case. And so again, we can blame women. We can blame women for Roe versus Wade being overturned. It's that simple. It is a fact. Fact.
At least for the majority. Even as it's happening in front of you, as the new normal is being built, it's almost impossible for our minds.
Anyway.
Let's now take a more materialist approach. We talk about this plenty here on this channel, which you should subscribe to right now, by the way. The Soros women lobby, which paid me to make this video, doesn't really pay all that well. We talk about how...
Wow, so a women's lobby paid you to make this gaslighting video. It all makes sense, right? But they don't pay very well. Wow, you are quite a loser, Bling Man. Here you are making a misandric video to spin on other men, and they're not even paying you well for it. Oh my God. Talk about a complete lack of self-respect.
Something political scientists like myself
Sorry,
call reaction.
Jump ahead. I want to talk about this too.
Of crisis, societies either address their reality by altering or completely changing the true root cause of their problem, the systematic way they have organized that society, or they give into escapism, something political scientists like myself like to call reaction or reactionary politics.
Then you're involved in being reactionary, aren't you? You're involved in escapism because you didn't change the core root of anything. You upheld the status quo. You took on a traditional working relationship to have a woman who doesn't even care for you as a human being in your life. The root cause we would have to genetically engineer women so they actually liked men in the way that men like women, right? And you're part of political science? Okay, that's junk science then.
Which, no, it's not Markiplier playing Fortnite.
This is big brain time.
It's basically fascism, my dude. But what the hell does all of this have to do with masculinity? Well, it's rather simple. When you raise generations of men on the idea that their sense of success as men is defined by their ability to financially upkeep a family, and
well, who makes that? Who raises them? Their mothers. Exactly. And it'd be a correct raising because that's what women demand. Are you saying, were you raised to do that? But you made this choice. You made this worker-provider choice on your own. So who are you to spit on men for anything?
then you create a system in which that isn't even possible because, I don't know, a house costs 3 lifetimes of work and the $150K salary might be achievable, but only at the point of your life when your kids have kids. So when you don't want anyone to actually get mad at the system, stuff like the way the economy functions and who it benefits, the way company and state hierarchy works, and so on, you find them an escape, a reaction, a thing to complain about as the false cause of their misery.
Well, dude, if women wanted to get together with men for themselves, they wouldn't need to earn money like you did to bribe a woman. So they wouldn't even care about the system, would they?
A system-wide scapegoat. The way not being able to find a job, an error of the system, is offloaded to the immigrant. Not finding a wife is offloaded to the woman herself.
Well, it should be, right? Because she is making these decisions. You're the one who paid your woman to be around you, right? So she is to blame. Now, as for the immigrants, that's more misandry. Why? Because when they complain about immigrants, they're talking about other groups of men. That lineup you showed where men were struggling for employment, having a bunch of other men join in would exacerbate that problem. So that's what they're arguing against. That's what they're angry about. Not being able to get the bribing power for a woman.
To the immigrant. Not finding a wife is offloaded to the woman herself.
If only it was the 50s, she would get
Anyway,
me
is
back.
there anything else we need to talk about? Okay, let's stop right here.
The 101 signs of everything you need for a perfect scapegoat are right there. I can't even
You shouldn't be talking about scapegoat, because you're scapegoating men for women's choices.
honestly believe it took them this long to think of this in the first place. And that is exactly why it's so dangerous. Because in contrast to the simpleton grifters of the manosphere influencers, the eternal search for someone to rally against by reactionary or conservative politicians can so easily be found in the fetishized idea of what the feminine should be.
But what these guys, these conservatives, think the woman should be is someone who appreciates their labors. And you're conservative. You are a provider for a woman, and she's right now, at least, appreciating your labors. You haven't gotten into a relationship where you're respected. You got into a relationship where you're bribing a woman, she accepted it, and she's appreciating it for now, and you admitted you're extremely happy with that. So why shouldn't the conservatives desire the exact same thing that you have? This is a perfectly legitimate question. Why shouldn't they desire the exact same thing you have? And how are you any different from them? You aren't. You aren't. Okay. We're going to end it here. And I'm just going to say, let's see if we can't get this guy up here. You got Nick. I have to say, you are a pathetic man. You are an unevolved lizard brain man who sees what women want, has no self-respect, gives them what they want, then blames other men for things that are out of their control. And you don't want to blame women for what they do. You're as lizard brain as they get. It was a pleasure exposing you.